This RetroBlasting video has been brought to you by Common Sense. Common Sense, keeping fanboys from getting excited over nothing because they can't recognize patterns and then giving up their dignity. Common Sense. Try it today. I got hit with a lot of messages over the last few days. A lot of direct messages from people asking me if I'd heard the news that Kathleen Kennedy was quitting. And I said at the time, I'm not going to hold my breath for that. We've heard this song and dance before. Well, this time it's from a big news outlet. Variety's reporting it. Doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. And here we are. Nope, she's not really quitting. She's just giving up being CEO at some point in the future. But she's still going to keep using that Lucasfilm and Disney connection to make high-budget films and produce bad stuff. And I know that everybody's been summarizing her litany of terrible business decisions and going back over the entire timeline of her tenure at Lucasfilm since 2012, most of which we covered in Kathleen's Fire Hose of Fun video a few years ago, all of which still holds up 100% today, because these patterns aren't complicated. Her pattern of behavior is very simple and very repetitive. I think what blows me away the most about this is not so much Kathleen Kennedy's refuting of these claims by this reporter that then got picked up by Variety and then got picked up by all the YouTube influencer and fandom channels. What blows me away is that it's not that the fandom channels and the pop culture channels and the influencers keep falling for it. It's that they still care at all. It's that they've never figured out something else to talk about. And that's not to say that these channels that follow movie news and stuff like that, of which there are many and they have many takes, but something like this happens and they all, spin up and do the whole song and dance. But I learned a hard lesson over the course of the last 13 years of doing YouTube. I was told many, many, many times, don't feed the trolls. And I'm somebody that I don't have a problem with confrontation, so that was a very alien concept to me, where it's like if I see somebody trying to cause trouble, I'm not going to let them just get away with it. And in some cases, my point was proven right, because some of those people are incessant. They really don't lose that energy. They really don't go away. But the part that they told me that is true, the part that I do hold dear as wisdom, I do think it's important at times to confront people who are trying to do harm or who are causing trouble. And I'm getting to my point about Kathleen Kennedy. I'm not so old that I've lost the plot, all right? So just bear with me here. The part where they said it's all about them wanting attention, that's the part that's universally true. Whether you confront them or not, whether they have to be dealt with or not, the truth 100% of the time is they are doing it to get attention, no matter how pathetic their attempt at getting attention is. A lot of people, when The Last Jedi came out, who hadn't already figured out how crap these movies were with The Force Awakens, some people were actually rooked by that movie and still try to soft defend it even today. And I think that's them coping, really, rather than admitting that they got that one wrong. The Last Jedi was like their breaking point. they said many times Rian Johnson is trolling the Star Wars fan base. He is a troll. And they're right. That was, again, an accurate observation. And in many ways, with a lot of the neener stuff that this studio has been doing over the last 10 to 15 years, however long it's been, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say 10, because this is The Force Awakens 10th anniversary year, which is staggering to even think about. It feels like that muck hit us in the face yesterday. What's staggering to think about is that they are trolling and have been trolling this fan base that entire time. Now, not as openly as acutely as a Rian Johnson or a Taika Waititi, but they have been doing their fair share of trolling. The Lucasfilm PR and marketing people on social media got caught doing it all the time. Contempt for their literal buyers. And so that's why when I see this cycle come around again, and I say to the people sending me DMs almost a week ago now, however long it's been, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, I told them all to a person, I don't see any reason to jump out on this. Let's not hold our breath. We've seen this many times before. Even though this time it's a bigger outlet, we've seen it many times before. So don't get your hopes up here. And they come out and they're like, well, no, this time it's a bigger thing and we all need to be talking about it. Well, I wanted to get your take. I feel like now it's a fair assessment that that behavior is the equivalent of feeding the trolls. What does Kathleen Kennedy do when she announces all these movie projects that are never going to happen? It's so that she can keep Lucasfilm in the news cycle, so that they will talk about it more, so that her stock price for Lucasfilm will continue to either stabilize or go up, or 80% of the things that she's talked about doing, she's never done, and they've gotten canceled or thrown into development hell, never to be talked about again. That's her and her company strategy of keeping Star Wars in media news without actually having to follow through on anything. So imagine what the fandom channels and the influencer channels are providing them with the constant attention. It took me years and years to find that balance. None of us come into this world perfect. I'm no exception. I spent years and years trying to figure out what my balancing act was with the trolls and the vitriol on social media, the rampant hypocrisy that I saw from people in the cheap seats who weren't putting themselves out there. But the one concrete takeaway that I will say that they had right, that I hadn't figured out, was that trolls just want attention. I still hold to the belief that some battles are worth fighting. I do not believe in the philosophy of the tucktails that believe you should just stay out of it and be neutral all the time. There are times and places where you have to step up and push back against these idiots. But a corporate troll operation like Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy, I do not think is one of them. And I think that it's something where, despite speaking out against it, it's giving it exactly what it wants by keeping it in the zeitgeist and keeping it in the news cycle. The only thing that keeps a Hollywood brand alive is people paying attention to it. And the moment you stop paying attention to it, it dies a very, very quick death. And I get it that a lot of people, both the viewers and the channels, don't want to leave well enough alone. They want to kick up the dirt at the pitcher's mound and they want to grouse about this stuff. And I understand why, because the decisions that these companies make are infuriating, and it seems obvious to the rest of us, who have common sense, why they shouldn't be making these decisions. But at the end of the day, they're not getting out of the way. And so all the influencer crowd is doing is giving them more of the attention they want and keeping their brand elevated above the din in the larger pop culture discussion forum. If you don't stop talking about them, it'll never die. And you have to ask yourself what you want. Do you want a terrible company that's ruined all these franchises? Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Willow. Do you want that company to keep existing? If so, even if you're mad about it, keep talking about them. Maybe there's a benefit to you there, and that's fine. A lot of channels do it. A lot of channels are built around it. They have legitimate gripes. Their gripes aren't illegitimate. Their gripes are absolutely legitimate. These movies are bad. These scripts are bad. These decisions are bad. The leadership is bad. Wholesale. But when you know they're also trolling you, and have been for a decade, when does the rule about not feeding the troll step into play? Because by every account and measure this morning that's been looked at, analyzed, and reported on, Kathleen Kennedy pulled her media strings with her Access media friends, got herself a good Deadline interview, and then thumbed her nose in everybody's faces and said, "Oh, I'm not leaving. Ha 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 ha. They have all that wrong. I don't know what they're talking about." And now everybody's speculating, oh, well, she did that because she didn't get to announce it her own way. Maybe that's true. Which means that by this reporter coming out and flaming up this rumor again, then caught the whirlwind of the social media influencer crowd, it kept her there longer. Because she's a very... She seems to be a very revenge-filled, vindictive type. And I'm not saying that social media itself is responsible for her coming back around and saying, "Oh no, you have that wrong, I ain't going nowhere." But we got to start asking ourselves what part we play in that end result. I keep wondering when. I've talked about this before. This terminal lack of curiosity in our generation, at our age, and I know that happens to some degree in every generation as a population ages. Aging just naturally makes a certain swath of the population get stuck in their ways, become less curious, convince themselves that every piece of media that they grew up with is superior to every piece of media coming out today, or in whatever modern time they were living in as an older person. But it's not true. It just so happens that right now we're living in the worst era of Hollywood ever. Ironically, an era that came about because of a 1977 film called Star Wars, where the Hollywood system kept learning and tripling down on all the wrong lessons. They didn't learn the right lessons from Star Wars, they learned the wrong ones. And so now here we are. And it's a perfect storm of 50 years of Hollywood learning the wrong lessons from blockbusters like Jaws and Star Wars. And we're at the nadir of corporate autocracy when it comes to the way businesses are run, the way businesses are allowed to just run amok. Merge, acquire, burn that to the ground, fire all those people, merge, acquire. They have no imagination, they have no creativity, and now they own everything. And I think that's what makes me the most disappointed and sad, is that I think it's one thing to look at a piece of media, look at it from its storytelling merits, look at it from its production merits, and do what movie enthusiasts and cinephiles have always done, which is look at that piece of media and say, is it good? Is it bad? Why? That traditionally has had an effect on movie studios. They care about what their critics say, to the point that they've been trying to buy the critics, and they've been caught doing it. So criticism of the movie itself, criticism of the TV show itself, telling people not to watch it by extension, or telling people to watch it if it's good, has an effect on the way movie studios make decisions. Sometimes it takes a long time, but it does. Going after, speculating on, and increasingly, like constantly, doing the whole rumor mill thing, I don't know how effective that is. I don't think it should never be done, but I don't know if it's I don't know if feeding the trolls constantly like this, these corporate Hollywood trolls, I don't know if feeding them this frequently is doing the future any favors. And this terminal lack of curiosity on the part of our generation, because we're getting older, is only going to make this worse. A lot of these channels, they do talk about other projects. They do talk about other things. But it's probably a minority of the time compared to keeping up with the latest boneheaded move in the board of directors, room or conference room of some big studio with some tentpole IP that's basically a rotting corpse on a pike that they just keep making movies about. And part of that comes down to the fact that I wonder if a lot of the fandom channels, because they're my age or just slightly younger, they're also going through that phase in their life where they're giving into not really being curious about anything anymore, and they really just fixate on the same 8 to 10 franchises, which happen to be the 8 to 10 franchises that Hollywood is also continuing to reanimate poorly with every successive attempt. I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and he told me that he thought that he was just probably going to watch the same old things that he grew up with now until the end, because he didn't really like anything new that was coming out. And while he did admit that he has looked back a little bit at older stuff from before his time, I don't know how much of that he's done. The indication was he hadn't done much. So his curiosity really hasn't solidly taken him backward. Like so many, he's still stuck right here. This is where he wants to be. This is where he would prefer to be, right here. He wants the new stuff to still be right here, which it's not, which is why everybody's understandably angry to a degree. I'm only angry because the screenwriting is terrible. I've said that for years. I'm not afraid of new. I love old, and I love a lot of stuff that's new, but I also recognize there was just as much bad old stuff as there is bad new stuff. Although I will say that where Hollywood is concerned, there's a lot more bad new stuff than there ever has been. But in terms of entertainment globally in general, I think the proportions are generally the same for good to bad production. You always have to find those diamonds in the rough. And looking for them is hard, and looking for them requires curiosity and a willingness to look outside your entertainment comfort zone. Whatever it is. I had preconceived ideas about a lot of things in my young adult life. We all do. We're smarter in our 20s than we are in our teens, but we're not that much smarter. And then you look back on it and you go, oh, I could have done that better. So I really, really wish that fandom would start ignoring these big studios more, because that's what's going to hurt them the most. Ignoring them. Sure, review a movie when it comes out. That's fine. Like, review the film. Say why it's bad, and then move on to the next thing that you're wanting to talk about and wanting other people to know about. It's a tough sell because everybody else around you is also lacking in curiosity. It's a tough sell. I get it. But as Doctor Who once said, you got to break the cycle. You keep letting the wheel turn. None of us are going to get off the carousel. We're all going to be trapped on it. And I tried to do that with toys. I tried to do that for a while with toys. The problem that we ran into there, because we thought, we meaning me and a handful of other channels, thought that, well, if we champion independent and third-party toys and we invest in the products ourselves, in other words, we're not getting free samples, we invest ourselves, then we are putting our money where our mouth is. And we did. That is factually, observably true. But what we didn't anticipate, unfortunately, was the deceitful nature of a lot of humans, and also the odds of a venture like that going sideways. And while I do think it's crap for any grown adult to say that they were influenced by somebody else to make a decision, the thing that differentiates championing new media from championing a new product is that with a product, there's a natural exchange of money first, and that's where that all went sideways. And I've already made the statements about that I'm never doing that again. Like I'll test the waters in the background before it's proven, and then after a proven track record of excellent customer service, then I'll be comfortable going out there like I do with some artisan toy companies right now. But with media, you don't have that risk. There's no risk to the consumer who's also your friend out there or your viewer. There's no risk to the consumer of championing new ideas in media, championing the independent film, championing the independent or lesser known television show. Hell, even at this point, championing the lesser known streaming service that a lot of them are free. So, and you can observe how much content they provide and all that kind of stuff. Now, I haven't done anything like that, but I'm just thinking out loud. The barrier comes in with, like we said many times in conversations, the lack of curiosity. The viewers out there don't come in droves to see your content on an independent film or an older film, and that is a huge hurdle to climb. It's massive. I tried it years ago with a little series called Classics in 60 Seconds. And it was funny because that was back in 2012. So I was ahead of the TikTok thing before TikTok was accepted as a thing. I have no TikTok account. But I was run out on a rail for those. Even though now they're like the perfect TikTok I see videos that are Classics in 60 Seconds style on Facebook Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts right now. And I'm like, wow, I was 13 years ahead of my time on that one. Damn. But it's going to take some kind of seismic shift and people getting curious again about things that they're not familiar with. It's going to take people getting interested, and I don't know if it's possible, but it's going to take people having to get interested in learning, being curious and learning about things they've never heard of before. Ooh, that looks interesting. And I like the person that runs this channel. I'll trust them to watch this video for 15 minutes. Maybe I'll find something or discover something I didn't know about before, and I'll get excited about it in media. But it is a hard sell. I'm not going to say it's a common sense solution in the turnkey manner. It's not the obvious, easy button answer. But right now, it's the only thing I can see a way out of, and it's going to take the most popular influencers and popular fandom channels to start doing it for people to start giving a shit. The most popular and the biggest channels would have to start prioritizing more of their content to champion the independent ideas and the stuff that isn't a tired franchise, and slowly off-ramp a certain percentage of their Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, Warner Brothers, DC, Star Trek, Doctor Who content to do that. And it doesn't mean that you don't review the films that come out from those studios. Yeah, you review them. You say that another film has come out, let's talk about it. But the drumbeat of commentary and analysis and outrage baiting and stuff that goes on, that focuses on the people in the companies behind all this stuff, it's just feeding the trolls. And they are trolls. And everybody kept getting excited every time they would say Kathleen Kennedy's being fired. Oh, this time she's going to be fired. This time. No, she's not. No, she's not. Well, this time, because it's not just wishful thinking by a couple of channels. Yeah, but you didn't think that was just a couple of channels wishful thinking back then. Every time that happened before, you thought that they had their finger on the pulse of everything and that they had it right. We've got to start getting interested in other stuff. We have to. What good is staying interested in Star Wars when, all of it stinks? I mean, I know for a fact that I'm grateful I'll never have to review those sequel trilogy films because, Mahler already did it so well. There's nothing left to be said from my perspective on that. I can go focus on, other pieces of media that may or may not have been mainstream, but maybe there's something that I really feel needs to be said about them, either positive or negative. And maybe it'll get other people curious to look at stuff in a new way. But as far as chasing Kathleen Kennedy's tail and wondering, is this the moment? Is this the moment? The moment will happen faster than you think if you stop watching the kettle. The kettle never boils when you're watching it. You want her to go, stop paying attention to her, and she'll be gone before you know it. What will the future hold after that? Who knows? Probably nothing good for a while. But it will be a future, whatever that's worth. If you really want to just keep watching Star Wars into your 80s. I like Star Wars. I like the original trilogy. I like talking about different aspects of its merch and its impact and stuff like that. I think there's merit to that. I like finding the quirks. I like, but I don't want to see our generation keep wasting its time, keeping its eye of Sauron on a group of people that has no respect for us and hates our guts and needs our attention, even though it's in the worst way. Make no mistake, they want us talking about them. They have monetized their haters. I think it's time to get interested in other stuff and stop wondering when Kathleen Kennedy is going to go. I can't say it any better than Joaquin from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan said it. Kathleen Kennedy will wait.
She's not going anywhere.